All right, so my name is Linwood Schaefer, and hopefully during my portion of the talk tonight, you're going to get to see some of the threads that kind of run through what both Michael spoke about and what Autumn spoke about. So we're going to be talking about financing their startup. How many people here are currently in a relationship or have ever been in a relationship? If you are. All right, so if you're in a relationship, you know sometimes arguments happen. When you look at the data suggests that finances and money is one of the #1 issues that cause arguments, even leading up to divorce. Picture this, you're a college student and you are working your way through college. You're spending your evenings and your weekends working so that you can afford tuition. But your coworker, your co-founder, they didn't have to work, they don't have student loans because their parent was able to pay for them going to school. This may impact how you guys view finances. It may impact how you spend money. You have this idea for this business, and you're doing it, and you're taking great risks to do it. But if you fail, it will be catastrophic for you. But if your co-founder fails, mom and dad may be there to pick up the pieces. So what you need to do with your co-founder is the same thing you need to do with your lover. You need to have that money talk. You need to sit down and talk about money to make sure that you're on the same page with respect to how you're going to be spending money. Today we're going to be talking about 3 options: bootstrapping, family and friends, and crowdfunding. So, bootstrapping is one of my favorites. This is where you can kind of have the opportunity to get creative. This graphic here illustrates an exercise that I want you to go through every time you spend money or before you spend money. I want you to ask yourself, do you actually need it? Does the business actually need it? As a law student, I cannot recommend that you steal it. Right? I don't suggest that you find it in the dumpster, but can you borrow it? Can you make it? Is it something that you can rent? You want to make sure that you go through this process and think through any time before you spend money. Studies show that 80% of startups operations are funded by founders' personal finances, according to Investopedia. A great example of a bootstrapper is Sara Blakely. Sara Blakely founded Spanx. She started with $5,000 from her personal savings. This is at the heart of bootstrapping. When you're doing bootstrapping, you want to basically go through and have a personal inventory. You want to look at your bank account, you want to look at your credit score, you want to look at your network, you want to look at everything. You want to basically see what you have from a personal standpoint. You're maximizing your personal resources. Sara Blakely took that $5,000 and she used it to get a patent. Now, the second thing that she did here is interesting because she wrote the patent herself. She did all the research, so that means she took her time. She took her money, she took her own time, which can be an underappreciated but a very valuable resource. And she used that time to research how to basically write her patent so she didn't have to pay an attorney to do it. And she kept her day job while she launched her business. I like to call this the 9 to 5 is what you do to survive, but the 5 to 9 is what you do to thrive. So after she got off her work, that's when she started working on her dreams and her business. And she was able to grow the company organically. So she used the sales of the company to further the expansion of the company. And as a result of that, Sara Blakely at this point is debt-free, and she owns 100% of Spanx. We all, like a lot of people look at Shark Tank and people think that the name of the game is to maximize value creation. That's not the name of the game if you're a founder. The name of the game is to maximize value capture. The last thing that you want to do is create a great company, and then if you have an exit opportunity, is to create a bunch of value for everyone other than yourself because you gave away all of your equity when you were trying to raise money. So you need to think about that. The next thing that I want to speak about is family and friends. So you going through the personal inventory, you exhausted your personal resources, your credit score, everything that you can think of. The next logical step that people will look at is the personal relationships that they have. They'll look at family and friends. And as we can see on the screen, a lot of startups raise money this way. Over $60 billion are raised every year via family and friends. More than angel investors and venture capital money combined. But you have to make sure that you understand that even though you're dealing with personal relationships, you want to make sure that you're formalizing these agreements. Don't be too informal. It's an easy way to tarnish close relationships. One way you can approach this is to use something that's called a convertible note. Convertible note is the short-term debt instrument that converts into equity. And the thing that I like about the convertible note option is that you do not have to figure out what your valuation is at the time that you give the convertible note. What will happen is, in the future, whoever holds the convertible note will have access to discounted equity in the future. But when you approach this, you want to make sure that you manage expectations up front, like you've had with your personal relationships, like you had with your co-founder, with your potential investors. You want to make sure that you have that money talk. You sit down and you manage expectations and you go through. Jeff Booth and Rob Banks, they founded BuildDirect in Canada. And they were able to raise reportedly about $500,000 from early investors, which included family and friends. And what was key for them is that they manage expectations. You have to be upfront, open, and honest about the possibility of failure. Most startups fail. So if you're going to take money from your family and your friends, you want to make sure that you over-index and say, look, there's a possibility that this whole venture is going to fail. But if you value your relationships, I would suggest that you do that. And they also spoke about the plan that they had for repayment. Now, the last financing option that I want to speak about tonight is crowdfunding. There are basically two main categories of crowdfunding. One is the equity-based model. We're not going to spend too much time on that tonight because anytime you're dealing with equity, raising equity, you have to think about SEC regulations. And when you think about SEC regulations, I want you to think about money because you're going to have to call the lawyers to make sure that you're in compliance. But the other way that you can do crowdfunding is through the reward-based model. Some of you may have already gone through this route. But basically, for those who have not, crowdfunding, when you go to the crowd via the internet and you raise money. Two of the most popular sites for this is Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where billions of dollars have been raised by various entrepreneurs. And the reason that I like the reward-based model of crowdsourcing is you don't have to worry about SEC regulations. You're not raising equity. You're giving a reward in exchange for the money that you are raising from the crowd. And an example of that is Oculus VR, virtual reality. In 2012, they launched their Kickstarter campaign with the simple goal of raising $250,000. They shattered that goal, but what they did is it's basically broken down in a tiered system. If you gave them, $10, you get like a T-shirt or something like that. If you gave them $300, you could get the actual virtual reality headset. So that's what you have to think about. The cost to you would be whatever the cost of the product is. But at the same time, you can utilize this for market testing. You can utilize it to see what the response will be to your product. So it serves a dual purpose. For Oculus VR, 2 years after they started the campaign, they had an exit. Facebook purchased them for $2.3 billion. But again, through this option, they did not give away equity. So going back to the piece where we spoke about capturing the value, they were able to capture more of the $2.3 billion because they still own equity. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing the value that you capture. Now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Fernando, who's going to talk about avoiding some legal pitfalls.
All right, guys. So as you guys all know, so my colleague just walked you through some three big categories of legal issues to consider when starting out a business. This section is sort of intended to be a catch-all, things we might not have directly touched on in their own category, things that we think are important to consider going into the world of entrepreneurship. Again, these are by no means all of the important things to consider. These are ones that we thought people run into more often than not, so we thought we'd talk to you guys about today. So we're going to be chatting about commingling assets,